What is something that people 1,000 years ago thought would never be possible that is now possible? The majority of people being able to read and write. Medicine, antibiotics, not dying from a small cut because infection. A cold not being a death sentence. Being able to talk to people around the world. Education, skydiving, lasers, modern music, TV, computers, computer chips, internet etc., engined trains, vehicles in general, drugs. A more interesting question would be what's something we have now that people 1,000 or even 100 years ago wouldn't even begin to imagine the concept of, much less thought possible. For example, people 1,000 years ago can imagine being able to fly, but they couldn't possibly imagine the concept of the internet or computing in general. We ignore how weird microwaves are because they are 75-year-old tech, but they are still absolutely absurd things that exist in every household. But they also solve a problem that a 1024 AD person would have considered. We'll shoot something a bit like candlelight at food, and it makes the food heat itself up to a nice temp. That humans are destroying the earth with their greed and arrogance in the world, that we don't have much time before natural disasters wipe out countries and there's mass panic. COVID was a good test run, and we failed pretty miserably at it, so I'm not very hopeful at the current state of the world. I would say having mobile phones with their constant connection to people, news, weather, you can reach somebody in a second. 1,000 years ago you'd have to get out the feather and ink, seal the letter and get Edmund IV to send your personalized birthday scroll by horseback. Just look around. JFC, what kind of low energy question is that? A much better question would have been, what is something that was possible 1,000 years ago that isn't possible now? One easy answer is, see the Milky Way pretty much anywhere on Earth. Hard to imagine. Consider that a person that was 10 years old when the Wright brothers flew for the first time in 1903 would have only been in their late 70s. When we landed on the moon, from leaving the ground to leaving the planet in one lifetime. If they could even think of it. They had computers, but nothing like we would describe, and that tool has brought us so far in what? 20 years. We went from corded phones to generative AI in a literal flash compared to 1,000 years. Seems a stupid consideration. People used to work or stay out only during the day. They would get back home whenever the daylight began to fade away, because the night were dark as hell and without any lights beside the moon. War between vast empires in less than an hour, and have the results cause a severe multi-year famine practically everywhere in the world, from the soot of burning cities carried into the stratosphere. A grocery store. Most people 1,000 years ago relied on subsistence farming, and the back-breaking labor that involved. Now just a quick trip to the store can provide you and your family all the nutritional needs. The ability to be anywhere in the world within a day or two. Highway travel at 70 miles per hour. Temperature balancing hybrid foam beds. Not having half of your children born die before adulthood. Digital data, internet, refrigeration, electricity and its applications, medicinal advancements, rate of travel, speed of communication. Basically everything in everyday life. There are many things that were considered impossible at the time. Space travel, medicine, technology, energy and cars. It was never thought that people could drive. Everything you see around you. Computers, electricity, mobile phones, cars, airplanes. Not to even start talking about social aspects like democracy and education. Crazy. But just about anything that was impossible 300 years would have seemed just as impossible 1,000 years ago. Dark ages weren't great for innovation. Paying with a card. Imagine they saw us do that. Just taking out a plastic card and holding it above a box. Then just walking away with your groceries. An infant mortality rate measured in fractions of a percent. People regularly living long enough that their body wears out on its own. Gunpowder. Even though it was invented about 200 years ago. Imagine a world in 1024 with fishing no more wheat and barley. Hello striped bass stripers. Sending a person to the moon, because back then, the biggest trip was probably just to the neighbor's village to borrow a cup of sugar. So many things. Surviving relatively minor infections as an obvious one, but probably most outlandish would be space exploration. ARP. Were you expecting something inspired or insightful? Literally everything. Everything we do and use in 2024 could qualify. In just seconds I could pull up a video of a man breaking a glass jar in his asshole. I bet they didn't think that was possible. Seeing another part of the world within 24 hours. Now, anywhere in the world can be a 24 hours flight away. Not the 6-month sale. The only reason I even stay subscribed to this subreddit is to be amused by how stupid the questions that get asked here are. Fighting diseases 100. People died of shit, now we have pills or vaccines for ... Child deaths were off the roof. I have an internet device in my pocket that can take me anywhere. Pretty sure that would break some people's brains. Walking on the moon. Flying. Instantaneous communication anywhere. Waves hand vaguely while muttering everything. Penicillin and vaccines. It's wild to think how humanity has bodied one of the 4 horsemen this last century. Asking a question and having thousands of people from different parts of the world answer it within minutes. The kinds of seemingly impossible math problems we can solve just with pen and paper using calculus. Not worrying each and every day about famine, war, environmental disasters. Hold on a moment. I can instantly call someone a dipshit on the other side of the globe, and they'll understand me. Living so high up in the sky that one is essentially living in the clouds some days. The thing you're doing right now. Asking a question and getting answers instantly. Being atheist and publicly declaring that, without being imprisoned and executed. Having all of your children surviving into adulthood, space travel, MERS, iron floating on water, the internet and instant communication, guns. Their lives would have been so much easier if they had just had fire. Having access to nearly every kind of spice in the world very easily. Imagine trying to explain smartphones to folks from the Middle Ages. Having something like the internet. It's absolutely wild it exists. Being able to go massive distances at such a small amount of time. Almost everything we do on a daily basis as part of our routine. An oven that heats the food but not the plate it's sitting on. That most people believe that organized religion is a farce.